lunch, and then we'll talk more after. Someone asked this, what should I focus on most to improve my writing? Two things. And I know you think it sounds crazy, but I've done so much research on the power of that verb, and I literally give my students 800 verbs. Because the verb is shaping the thought of the sentence, and so start collecting them like precious jewels. Think about like, oh, I'm going to use the verb orchestrate. Like for my last paper, I had my seniors choose 5 verbs that they've never used before in their life to put in this paper. And it was so cool to see them like use these incredible analytical verbs that, you know, that architecting this idea, or I'm going to amplify this or accentuate this, you know, going through the whole alphabet and thinking of the power available to you through language. The second thing is related to this. Start thinking now about things you care about, categories of the human experience you care about. The big buzzwords, you know, in a college setting are words like leadership, empathy, you know, global, citizenship, freedom, happiness. Like think now, like, okay, what do I think about these things? And maybe I should take a philosophy class or a religious studies class. Like, what do I think about the world? And then how can I contribute in some way to the conversation happening about these words? And so when you think about, I'm going to be a complex thinker, I'm going to connect all these ideas and start thinking deeply, you're going to find that college is going to be an incredible experience for you, and you're going to find yourself getting really strong grades in any writing class because you're doing the hallmarks of great writing. So remember the written voice, using all the techniques of how to write with flair. Always remember how to demonstrate your authority, because remember, what did I share right when I got up here? My degree, my writing, awards. I had to kind of prove myself to you a little bit. You got to do that in writing. Also, why this, why now? Complexity of thought, and remember the gift that writing is. So to cultivate that love of writing, because you're going to have to write a lot in college. You will write a lot. And when you come back from lunch, I'll tell you kind of what the landscape of writing is in college and what you can expect for how much you'll have to write. Is that helpful?
Still have 5 minutes.
Oh, I do. Should we ask one question?
Sure.
Oh, I thought that was like a bell. I don't know.
No, that was my weird phone just like beeping.
Wait, by the way, this is a lot like a college class. What I just did
Yes.
is like a college class. Come in, ready to take notes. The professor will tell you where you're going, what the expectations are. And but it is your time to be like, wait, you said this, I didn't understand. Don't worry. No one, you're there, you're paying a fortune to learn.
Yeah.
So ask questions. Yes.
I was just going to say that they are currently working on a research paper,
Love
and they were able to choose a topic that they cared about
Love it.
to develop a 5 to 7 page research paper that then they will transform into a TED Talk, essentially.
Oh, that's perfect.
So I just wanted to say that in terms of complexity of thought and writing as a gift and exploring, you know, the facet of the human experience that you are interested in.
That's right.
Do you think that this assignment has merit, and can you talk about what a professor at Penn State would require from a research paper standpoint?
That sounds like a lot like a college level assignment, especially the part where a professor may have you transform that assignment into a podcast, a TED Talk, especially if you take some of those classes linked to the communications department where you're reproducing your work in other forms. Now, the research, we could talk about this forever. The biggest problem I see in college students, they don't know how to dialogue well with a source. So, say you're writing, I don't know, do you know your topic? What are you writing on? Urban planning.
They all know their topics.
Right, so say you're dialoguing with a scholar in urban planning. What you need to do is introduce that scholar to the reader. Then introduce that quote with that beautiful analytical verb, like Dr. Brown recently argued, and then incorporate the quote, and then guess what your very next sentence should be? Your understanding of that quote, your synthesis of that quote. A lot of people don't know how to do that. So what I get is these college papers where it's like quote, 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 I'm done. There's no dialogue. Remember, writing is always a conversation. They will teach you that in English 15, proper citation. Some of you asked about MLA, APA. You'll be ahead of the game if you come in knowing proper citation. So thank you, Mrs. McGinty. But I teach in the advanced writing classes, I remind students, never begin a sentence with a quote. Unless you're in journalism writing for newspapers, always introduce who this source is, why you're using this source, what this source contributes to your argument. What's your reaction to that source? How many sources do you need for your paper?
I did not require an amount because if I did, then they would just produce an amount.
So you can have, yeah, sometimes like in a 4 to 7 page research paper, I might ask students to have 2 or 3 really solid pieces of evidence. Because you're making arguments that you're, supporting with evidence. And oh yeah, and use that analytical verb like Dr. Brown suggests or whatever. And then dialogue with the quote. And then the citation can either be an in-text citation, a footnote, but ask the professor what kind of citation she wants. MLA is usually for, liberal arts, what you'll be doing in my class, other classes. APA or Chicago is more for social sciences, right? Am I getting that right? APA, social sciences?
Just affirmed that in a quiz.
Did we affirm that? Okay, good. I do know what I'm talking about. I did learn. But what Ms. McGinty just described to you is a classic essay in English reading class, probably 4 to 6 pages. In your upper level classes or in your major, you may see a 10 to 15 page, which sounds like a ton. But remember, it's an 8-hour workday. So if you write a couple pages a day, you'll be done. So time management will be great. Yes.
And you said upper level courses.
Yes, upper level.
Junior, senior.
Yes, you guys are going to feel great as freshmen.
Did I get this order right? You said introduce quote with verb, analytical verb.
Yeah.
Dialogue with the quote.
Well, then produce the quote.
Produce
So
the quote.
introduce the quote. Dr. Brown recently argued in the New York Times that, and then you sandwich the quote. They call it the quote sandwich. So you've got the introduction to the quote, include the quote with quotation marks,
And then dialogue.
and then dialogue with the quote. Many people forget number 3, so that quote is just dangling
So
there.
I'll call it a quote sandwich.
Quote sandwich.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
You can get the book They Say, I Say, which
Yes.
introduces Gerald Graff.
The department has some, so I will either take an excerpt from that and
Yes.
share it with you, or I will try to get copies for everyone. That's
Yes.
great.
So if you just do this over and over again in every college class, yes, that's what I've learned. And then after lunch, I'll hopefully answer all your questions and we can talk more about writing.
Yep. Do you want to take one question now, or do you want to wait about lunch? They can be discussed early.
You guys are so alert. I'm impressed.
They are
like
very
I teach
alert.
sometimes I teach freshmen 8 a.m. and I'm like, come on, let's get music playing. I know the energy. So yay.
And it's a Friday too. So
And it's a Friday, you guys.
Good job, everybody, with your
I know.
10 eyes.
I know some of you are probably like, no, I'm ready to do it. High school's hard. I do hear college freshmen say that Penn State freshman year is easier than their senior year at State High. So just to give you a little bit of, especially if you're in these advanced writing classes. Have you heard that from other people?
But wouldn't you rather be better prepared
Yes.
than underprepared?
Exactly.
Any questions before lunch for Dr. H? Or are we starting?
Think of a good one while you're at lunch.
Yeah, let's do
You can
that.
ask me anything. I'll solve all your problems.
So over lunch, why don't you contemplate and ponder, digest everything she's said.
Yes,
Thank you. Come back with really excellent questions and we'll continue the conversation, all right? Have a nice lunch. Thank you.
So fun.
And have some oranges. Anyone can eat oranges. I've got a lot of oranges. Please eat the oranges.
Anyone? Orange? Should
I've
I
got a
stand?
lot of oranges.
Have an orange. I'll
They're
have an orange.
sustainably grown in
Arizona,
Arizona.
pretty much.
I'm just
You want
waiting.
orange? That'd be so fun, yeah.
She's now my orange dealer.
Oranges?
Okay, that's
Have an orange? I should start with one
supported
orange.
that.